I've often seen the question asked, can you use a two-handed sword with one hand? And also, sometimes, can you use a one-handed sword with two hands? The latter doesn't seem to have been answered as much, so let's tackle that today. By the way, that's assuming you have only this one single-handed weapon. If you use a single-handed weapon and a shield, you're better off doing that instead of discarding the shield and using this with two hands. So just one weapon, you're just trying to get a bit more of an advantage out of it. There is also a disadvantage, we'll get to that. Because I run the channel by myself, I have to spend a lot of time on the computer, researching topics, editing, answering emails, etc. And sitting all day is unhealthy, so I was looking for a better solution to switch between a sitting and standing position. So when Anthrodesk offered to send me one to try out and promote if I like it, my response was, hell yeah, this is exactly what I've been looking for. So this is a single motor electric standing desk which can be set to a height between 69 and 117 centimeters or 27 and 46 inches. It's got 4 buttons you can program to different heights. They also have a dual motor version and a manual crank model, and a variety of tabletops. What I picked was a 60 by 30 walnut veneer, which in person appears a little bit lighter in color than the pictures, but either way it looks great. Both the frame and tabletop are heavy duty, have a solid feel to them. I'm very happy with it so far and can highly recommend it. Check out the link in the description below. The short answer to can you use a single-handed sword with two hands is yes. The short answer to should you is it depends. So here's the long answer. First off, how can you do it? It depends on the type of sword. Some swords are designed for single-handed use, but have a grip that's more than long enough to accommodate two hands. For example, this jian, as far as I know, is intended for single-handed use, and the extremely lightweight would also suggest that. But there's more than enough space. I can easily use this with two hands, no problem. The messer is also a good example. There are some large versions that are clearly intended for two-handed use, but most of them have a handle that's long enough for either a bastard sword or hand-and-a-half sword, if you will. But the manuscripts show pretty much exclusively single-handed use with these. This one here, it's a bit short for two-handed use. This is really specifically single-handed. I put on these gloves here to make it a bit harder on myself for extra bulk. But if I wanted to use this with two hands, it's not really working. I can't really cram that extra hand on there. There is one way to do it, which I'll get to later, but first we'll look at this particular arming sword here, which is an interesting case. It's clearly designed for single-handed use. As far as grip length is concerned, there's no way you can cram another hand in there. However, you could hold on to the pommel. In this case, it's still a bit tight, but I can improve that a little bit by moving up and putting one finger over the guard. Seems very risky. You're gonna get your finger chopped off that way. You might, but it depends on how you use it. In this case, I simply would not parry in such a way that the blade slides down on my flat. And of course, I wouldn't try to deliberately catch a blade on the guard. That's obvious. But if you keep that in mind, if you're aware of the risk, and, you know, if need be, you could even let go for a moment. Like if you see that the blade is coming this way, you could be like, oh crap, you know, just to get your fingers out of the way. So yeah, it's risky, but it's not too terrible. And in fact, some swords actually have a ring there that acts as an extra guard for the finger. Either way, so if you really want to, you can do this. And what are the reasons anyway? The thing that people typically think of is power. You do twice as much damage if you use two hands. Not really. You don't hit twice as hard. I would think more like 1.5 times maybe. What you might be forgetting about is speed. So if I hold a sword like this in one hand, and I want to perform 2 attacks in succession, one to his neck and one to his face, right? So boom, like this. Sorry, Bob. And now I do the same thing with two hands. Noticeably faster, especially when it comes to feints. So if instead of actually hitting and using the bounce, you know, as the sword bounces a little bit and use that to jumpstart the follow-up attack. If instead I feint to one opening to provoke a defense there, and then interrupt and attack the other opening, that's going to be quite a bit slower here, so watch this. With two hands, it's much easier to decelerate and stop the blade, and then accelerate in a different direction. Because now what I can do is push with my top hand, my main hand, in this direction toward the camera, and with the off hand in the opposite direction, away from the camera, to move this much faster than I could just like this. And also I have more precision as well. Here, there are a lot of ways in which I could throw off the edge alignment because this is all kind of wobbly. There's only one point of contact. Now with 2 points of contact, I can be much more precise in my edge alignment and my hit placement. Cram in the other hand as a crutch. Yeah, there it is. So what if the sword design doesn't lend itself to doing this? Like there's just not enough space. In this case, I can't even put a finger over the guard because this additional guard is here. It gets in the way. So I can't do that. I don't have enough here to hold on to it. With a sword like this, even if I don't put the finger up here, I might still get enough purchase on the guard because even if I just get 2 fingers on there, that's still better than just one hand. Even just 2 fingers will give me more control. If that's not an option at all, what can you do? Well, the way they do it in Chinese swordsmanship, by putting a hand on your wrist, basically. So this way, I would say it's not as effective as having both hands on there because now you don't have that extra leverage. You know, the further you can get your hands apart, the more leverage you have. So here they're very close together, but you're still able to support that arm with something more. So instead of cutting down like this, I can cut down like that and I push with this hand. I can give it a little bit more oomph and move it faster. This is not really helping with feints the way I showed earlier because having that hand here doesn't actually allow me to stop and redirect the sword more easily. It just gives me a bit more power there. And when I redirect it, I can kind of try to push my hand over like this. Like I can help out a little bit, not as much as having the other hand here, but it can still be helpful. And particularly also for an undercut. So if I come from below and I push like this, that's quite a bit more powerful than just this, because now I'm driving it like that as well. And also you can reinforce your defense a little bit. So if instead of just parrying like this, I have that hand here, this is going to be sturdier. So this way, if let's say I try a static block and it's just not enough, the opponent hits with so much force that it threatens to collapse it. If I have that hand here, it's not as likely, and even if it does collapse, it's going to hit my arm and be stopped. So this is kind of an extra safety measure. On the other side, it's a bit more awkward. If you have the hand here and you want to defend there, this doesn't do as much. This wouldn't really either. This is just kind of a bit of an awkward position for that. It just doesn't help as much as this would. And finally, you can also use that offhand to assist with a thrust. That's what this is presumably designed for specifically. You're able to put the palm of your hand on this disc. And so instead of thrusting just like this, you can do it this way and just drive more strongly with your whole body. Right? So what's the drawback here? Reach. You're shortening your reach. It might seem counterintuitive, but just to show you, let me actually use the shorter one here. So if I stand more sideways like this, my full extension is here. This is my maximum effective reach if I want to cut Bob in the neck here. If I want to do the same thing with the hand support, either like this, just misses him entirely, or like this, if I have enough space, still it misses him because I need to be able to reach with this hand. If I don't, I can move this a lot more further forward and I can turn my body more, I wouldn't be able to reach with my offhand here. And that's also something to keep in mind whenever you compare the reach of a single-handed sword to a two-handed sword. If we compare these two here, this arming sword is shorter than the jian. You can see that. So my maximum reach with the arming sword, effective reach, is here, right? And with this, single hand, of course, more reach. Two-handed, just about the same. It's actually a little bit less. Let me actually go all the way back here. So I just touch with the tip here, just the tip, right? This is the reach. And then here, if I turn into it, I got quite a bit more than that. So if I touch just with the tip, I'm further away. All things being equal, you have more reach with a single-handed sword than with a two-handed one. But of course, two-handed swords generally have longer blades, so they will still have more reach, or at least comparable. Anyway, hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching. Consider supporting me on Patreon. There's a link down below. You can get extra content. Occasionally I do extended ad-free cuts of videos, and you also get access to an exclusive Discord server. Anyway, have a good one. Take care.